It's okay. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the July 18th meeting of Facilities and Infrastructure, and we have a quorum. Lee Shurtleff, chair, is not here. He has to be excused. Okay, so calling to order. So first is changes to the agenda, and we do have several. We are withdrawing the legislature file number 12551, entitled Authorizing 2023-028 Federal Transit Administration, Section 5307, Urban Formula Program Grant Application. And we are going to add to the agenda legislature file number 12582, entitled Authorizing Federal Transit Administration Grant 2023-073, Section 5339C. Low and no emissions vehicle program grant for Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit. We're also going to add to the agenda a discussion item number 12584, mobility vision for Tompkins County. But first, let me ask if there are any other.
Excuse me, which resolution did we withdraw? What was the letter of that? It's D.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Let me ask if there are any other changes to the agenda. No. Okay. All right. We have no public comment. All right. Okay. There is no chair's report today. County Administrator.
Thank you. I just have a quick report about the Sears Street property. We were, the last time Lisa reported that we were waiting for the abstract to come back. That has been received. It's in the hands of the buyer's attorney at this point, and we're just kind of waiting for them. There was a question on it, so that'll be resolved pretty quickly, I think, and we should be able to move forward. We all know how closings go, but right now the plan is the closing will be in August, so they should begin construction probably in September, late August, September. And I think that the idea, if all goes well, is they would begin setting the homes in October, and they'll be utilizing their easement to access the property through the Tioga Street driveway for that. But they think it's a few weeks for that to happen. So that concludes my report.
Randy?
So INHS has a temporary easement through Tioga Street? Or?
That's right.
Okay, so it's not
to allow them, yeah, because it's such a narrow area to build that they need that space. Mm-hmm.
Is it in the purchase document? Is that how it's done, or?
It was done as a separate, yes, it's part of the closing agreement.
Okay, and my last question.
Sure.
What did we actually sell those property for, and has the money exchanged hands yet? Not till closing, I guess. Not
till closing, but it's a really good question. I kind of took this over as I started. That was not one of the questions I anticipated, okay, but I can send out an email. Yeah.
Legislator Brown, could you just pull your microphone closer? Thank you.
I apologize. Think of that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Norma.
You're welcome.
And today we have a presentation from Jeff from the Highway Department. I think this is the one we were to have last time, so thank you for coming back.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, Lee's here to miss it. Is not here to miss it. I am supposed to be the presenter.
Do you have a share screen button?
Need a little technical help here. I see more.
Join the crowd.
Cord.
This green one right down here.
Oh, the bright green arrow that says share. Thank you. I would have been looking for it for a long time. So I think it's right here. Thank you again. Seems not to be. There we go. we have it. Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is just a pretty short presentation of kind of what's going on, overlook of Highway Department presently. This was a little more current last month in June, but not many things have changed. But as I encounter them in the presentation, I will update them. Earlier this year, we were able to chip seal surface treatment 46 miles. It took our operation approximately 10 days, almost $600,000. That does gain in cost effectiveness by doing so many miles at one time. Breaking under the $13,000 a mile threshold is pretty rare with this process. This operation is a all hands on deck for our department. We literally need to pull everyone together, but also we coordinate with a lot of towns around the county, and actually some towns outside the county to help us with hauling of the small 1A stone, the chip seal, the chips that go on the road on top of the hot asphalt liquid. This process does create a lot of confusion by some residents. We do have a page on our website, and I share it often throughout the process when people think we're not understanding exactly what we're doing. Many times we resurface a road the previous year, and it's done with more of a dense asphalt, a binder, a stronger layer of asphalt, which will ultimately need a surface. A wearing surface, but also a sealing surface that prevents water penetration. This achieves that. You generally don't want to do these in the same year or even later in the fall, chip seal I'm talking about. So the system of us kind of going around our roads and paving and then coming back early in the fall and resealing has been going very well for us. But it does create confusion because there's, obviously they're like, you just paved the road last year. Why are you coming back again? We understand that it does create confusion and some impact to some residents, and we do our best to answer all those concerns. This year we've on the plate was to plan on paving 25.9 miles of road. That's a real good year. Just under $4 million we're spending for that work. A good share of these roads have been paved. I'm not going to go through each individual one. Some are just now finishing up, Hillview being the one that we're paving presently. We have made a lot of gains in this area. A lot of these roads will be the ones that we chip seal next year to just kind of complete that whole idea. We won't roads like, for instance, Warren Road, we would not chip seal. We did do a hot asphalt recycling and then a resurfacing similar to Fall Creek Road without the hot asphalt recycling. A section of that was hot asphalt, but that is a finished product that won't be chip sealed.
Jeff, are taking questions? Do you want to wait till the end?
I'd take questions as we go.
I just wondered, how do you decide which treatment to use?
It really has to do, I have done this for many years myself. Presently, I have my deputy, Nick Ensign, really handles that. We confer many times back and forth. We look at it like tools in a toolbox and then really decide what's best for the road. There's evaluations or there's decisions made. Number one, you got to be able to pay for it. You got to be able to cost effectively pay for it. And sometimes it's easy to create a map of what we need to do, but it's hard to take that map and then figure out how much money we have and what the best application is. Quite honestly, we go road by road and make those decisions. It's hard to blanket do anything in that range. The higher volume roads usually will receive a higher quality. Higher volume roads, wider roads, higher speed roads will usually receive a one-time hit of higher quality hot asphalt recycling with a 7mm binder, polymer binder on top of that you'll get many more years of life out of that. The lower volume roads, the lower speed roads will generally can be what we do with a milling and a replacement of that product with a dense binder, and then we'll chip seal over those. There's a road this year that we're doing a cold in place pavement on, and that's usually your most expensive process, and that's a process that you want to use on roads that have complete base failure. They're completely out of shape. They've really never had that type process done, and then you hope to like catch roads as they go through their aging. It's a very common deficiency curve with roadways, and if you can catch them at the right point, and then those processes will generally fall in that range of what's best for the road. But it's also decision, budget, a lot of different things. Sometimes timing, sometimes vendor ability. Vendor ability, timing on their schedule will impact what we do.
Thanks.
I think Randy had a question as well.
Yeah, I had a question on the chip seal. Is that, we get state funding for that? Or I've heard the chip funding, but is that the same thing, or is that?
We don't use any CHIPS reimbursement for our chip seal program.
Okay.
We are able to receive our full CHIPS reimbursement with our mainline paving projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And asphalt cost, has it gone up a lot recently, or?
And last year we saw huge peaks throughout the summer. This year it remained fairly stable. It started out a little higher than we thought, but it hasn't increased like we have seen in past years. Yeah, and it changes every month, so a project can impact, you can be doing 5 miles of road or 4.5, 3 miles of road, whatever, and have the price at the next month will jump, and it could cost you $50,000 more. Our vendors really work with us well on that. They know that they started the project earlier in this month. If it goes over a couple days, they usually won't charge us the higher rate. But any projects that we start that next month, it would be the higher rate.
And where does most of our asphalt come from? Where's the closest factory?
This year, we're lucky in Tompkins in that way that we do have competition with asphalt providers, vendors, and in-place construction companies. It's good to have multiples. Suitcoat is obviously a big name. A lot of people see them, they're around. Suitcoat, we also use Seneca Stone, and at times Broome Bituminous will also be competitive on some of the roads in the southern, kind of the southeastern part of the county.
Thank you.
Generally, it's between Seneca Stone and Suitcoat. So just back to this slide, one thing I wanted to know is that, that's a huge increase. In fact, I was almost like, I don't like to see a large spike, the 80 in 22 up to 87 in 23. This is our overall, all our 300 miles of road, our condition rating average. You won't normally see a spike, a rise like that, although it's a good thing. When you do see that, I would expect it to possibly be lower or taper off and be more of a flat curve. But I would say that that's a direct result of our maintenance, our preservation chip seal program. We're getting a lot of roads. We're getting back down on a lot of roads that we maybe over the past years haven't been able to get back to, and they've gone into a more declining position. Now, if we can keep maintaining the surface treatment the way we are, we should be able to keep that preservation piece. You're able to do the less expensive preservation versus the more expensive full depth reclamation, cold in place, things like that.
That's particularly, excuse me, Susan, but that's particularly good information, because I can remember when we had so many that were in bad shape.
Yeah, we've done a lot. I mean, I can't say enough about the commitment the legislature has put in place to give us those bond maintenance funds. Those have really made the difference when, being able, if we were only operating on what we're receiving CHIPS and maybe some local funding, we wouldn't have the results that we're getting at this time. It's a really, really nice thing. Changing gears a little bit to the capital project side of things. Here's kind of an overall list of really what we have going on in our engineering group, I would say. A lot of our admin and project managers work in this arena. We have different projects. The biggest point of the slide, I'm going to get into some individual slides with each one of these projects, but the total management of funding, all these projects are at different phases, but if you lump them all together, it's a little over $14 million. And we have Podunk Road. It's progressing along. working through some of the cultural resources stages. The project is on schedule. It is on the capital plan. This was a Bridge New York funded project, a little over $3 million with about an $773,000 local share. This is in the town of Ulysses. Here's the triple box, Mike, we were talking about. This does show, this is an upstream view looking downstream, so you can see the log structure, the catch of the triple box, those middle supports on the road. This is a rehabilitation project. This is on the tip. This is not a Bridge New York funded project. This is being funded through other sources, HBRR or whatnot. I don't see it on there, but it's a different source of funding through federal aid, and it's about $1.5 million, almost $2 million project. This is also continuing on schedule. This is on the capital plan. We have checked with more recently the guidance that DEC has put forth, and it doesn't seem that it'll be an impact to where we are with this project and the amount of funding. This does involve a 2.7-mile off-site detour during the work, although I don't think it'll be very long since it's a rehabilitation where they'll be peeling the road off and replacing some of the deck. There's a lot of the effervescence, the white coloring you see on the cement. That is a sign of deterioration of the concrete. They'll be refacing all of that, chipping it off to sound concrete, and then replacing it in kind. There'll also be scour protection placed along the inlet with large stone, things like that. That's some of the project-specific aspects. Mike?
So we're still going to end up with the center, the two piers?
We would, yes. This structure is not that old. It would be a very expensive project to replace that and make it a full freestanding bridge.
That creek could, you know, that's just a normal, a spring trees caught there, but you get a flooding situation, it'll bring down high risk trees and it'll plug it right up.
I don't disagree with you. We have a feel like this around the county that during big storms, we need to get out there and look around and talk with DEC if it's a bigger impact, like if we have to get down closer to the stream and things like that, we have to get their permission. It does require maintenance for sure.
Can I just ask one? But you said something about scour. Can you explain what that is to me?
Yeah, scour is an undermining.
The white part, the effervescent, weakens the bridge?
The effervescence is the deterioration of the
Okay.
concrete, yeah.
Okay.
Who, I guess to Mike's question, is as the road owner, the bridge owner, are we responsible for clearing those trees and doing that obstruction, doing that work?
Yeah, yes, we would be responsible for that, for maintenance, any maintenance of that. The idea that we're doing any preventative measures like Mike is concerned, and I agree to remove this issue. I guess the reason against not trying to remove it is cost, is availability of funds.
Okay, Mike?
But it's, as soon as we do this, now we've invested another 1.9 million in keeping it the same way. And they're going to say, well, you just spent $2 million on it, you know, 10 years ago. Why should we update the bridge and put in a new bridge? Because it's been rehabilitated when it probably ought to be replaced. So that's a little bit of a frustration in my mind, looking at this project.
I can't disagree with you. It requires maintenance.
Any way around it? Can we?
It was accepted as a project, as a rehabilitation because of the condition of the bridge. This is back when Tompkins County was involved with jurisdictional transfer of roads. This is an old state road that we exchanged with the state, gave them some county mileage, and we took state mileage. I'm not sure exactly the details of the exchange. This is a state structure. This road has a very wide right-of-way. I know there's at least one, I think there's two other structures identical to this on that road. I don't know off the top of my head what the number would be. It would be hard, it would be, we'll get to some other cost bridges that are freestanding that are replacements, and you'll see it'll be, it would be a $5-6 million bridge to try and replace that with a freestanding structure at this time. And
It would be different than like the Podunk Bridge?
this is a longer span than the Podunk Bridge.
Is it?
The Podunk Bridge is a freestanding truss. So, and this is a much wider cross-section of Fall Creek Road, so you also have a much wider bridge. But I'm not sure what the cost of a freestanding bridge would be.
All right. Thanks. I don't want to hold you up on this. Thank you.
Susan, I just have one follow-up question.
Go ahead.
And I guess I think, what are ongoing maintenance costs for a bridge like this? I mean, if we're 20% local share of a X million dollar bridge, are we going to spend $700,000+ in the life of that rehabilitation to maintain it? Would be my question, to try to understand if it makes sense to replace it.
I'd feel pretty confident in saying that we don't spend a lot of money when we go out there with a piece of equipment and hook, manually hook this brush and drag it off to the side. That won't amount to very much in cost. It's not something that, and to my knowledge, those triple boxes, although they very much appear like a kind of a trash catcher, referring to the woody structure, woody stuff that's collecting there, that really has never impacted it that I know of. It's never overtopped the road, which also would make it difficult to receive any kind of funding, additional funding from the federal government. This would, I don't know how much of this would be left to make a change like that. It would likely, it could possibly be falling on completely local funds.
Okay.
Slide. Midline Road Culvert. This is a Bridge New York funded culvert. It's being replaced in kind. The opening will be slightly larger. It's progressing on schedule at this time, and it is in the capital fund. And good news on this one, we have Falls Road over to Gannett Creek, and at the time last month we weren't sure, but we had pretty good confidence that it was going to receive Bridge New York funding. Governor Hochul has announced the award of Bridge New York funding across the state, and the good news is that this is now a Bridge New York funded project. The numbers you see at the top of that screen are accurate. We will be receiving $4,600,000 plus in state Bridge New York funding with a $244,000 local share. What you see there is it's upstream of the state park. There was a lot of interest from the state. Fred Bond wrote a letter of support for this project, which we much appreciated. That's the outside walls are all concrete or a stone facade that will remain. It's a concrete arch, and if you could see more pictures, I could show you if you're interested. But the word I used earlier with the effervescence, that is really leaking a lot through that concrete arch. If you were to look up under the bridge, it's hard to inspect and know the condition of these type structures because you really don't know what the other side of that concrete is doing on that concrete arch. I guess the good news here is that we have funding. The committee will be seeing some state-local agreements coming, some resolutions to adopt the bridge and enter into the agreement. This is on the capital plan. We did add this to the capital plan this year, which is good, and you'll see more of this to come in the future. Courtland Street Bridge Project. This is a locally funded project in the village of Groton. This project is progressing to bid at this time. This will be a freestanding bridge. Those two culverts will be taken out of there, and there'll be actually a structure that spans We're really at the point to developing final design plans, looking to go to bid on this very soon, but the work will be next year. We're working with some utility, moving a pole and things like that. The right-of-way phase went through, in my experience, extremely smoothly. The people were very understanding and in favor of the project. And I expect to see this bringing, hopefully we have, by bidding early, we have some really good bidders, some bids from qualified companies coming in, and that they're competitive and they're within budget, and we can recommend a low bridge and get that low bid and get that approved for construction next year.
Randy?
This is all local funding, you said?
It's all local funding, right?
And is it because it wasn't accepted, or?
We applied with this project multiple times to receive Bridge New York funding, and it wouldn't compete with some of the other projects that were submitted.
So this is in your capital plan then, or?
This is in the capital plan, yep, sorry, yeah.
So are we bonding things like this, or?
This, I believe, is a type that we would bond for,
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Mike?
This is badly needed, and I'm glad to hear that. It crosses Owasco Creek, and they have flooding problems there, too.
It looks like it needs it, just from the picture.
It's pretty rough shape, and,
Yeah.
and we've been trying to do this for quite some time and look for a lot of outside sources of funding, and not able to receive any. We need to move forward and get something done out there.
And also just say that, I was glad to hear you say that Teganic would have the stone, because I could see people from the public really wanting to maintain that appearance.
Absolutely.
Yes, so that's great.
Yeah, it's a park setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. I also wanted to thank you for, I have a lot of people in my district who have lots of questions about roads and highways, and every time I've referred them to you, you've taken the time to send them very thoughtful and complete answers, and I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much. All right, next on our agenda is a resolution for the airport. And this is our, I think this is resulting of our discussion at the last meeting where we talked about the staffing and the fact that there were often people in the airport during times when there was no staff present. So this is resolution authorizing additional positions for the Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, document 12550. I think we need a mover. Mike moves and Greg seconds. Discussion? Mike?
Because the legislature decided to take a vacation the first part of the month, all these meetings have been jumbled.
Yeah.
And finance has actually approved this. We had a discussion about it in that committee already. And I think that hopefully everybody's questions have been answered about this at this point. Roxanne and Josh have done a good job, and so has Lisa and Norma, working together to come up with the recommendation of this being the cost-effective alternative.
Great, thank you. Good to know. All right, Greg?
Yeah, I definitely will support this. I would just ask Roxanne or Norma or wherever the function may be, that we could maybe track the first year or two of this to see if our projections actually are what they are projected to be, just so that we can, again, have more sort of data-driven conversations. Obviously, the pro forma pencils and makes sense, but in actuality, this would be interesting to look at because I'm sure it's applicable in other instances potentially as well. So that would be my only request.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Randy, did you have a?
I just would like Roxanne to talk about it a little bit before I ask questions.
See.
Yep.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Roxanne.
Good morning, absolutely. So, we had talked about this at the last F&I, and then we brought it to budget. So, this is, a multiple, different kind of things happening. It's to not only get the airport to 24-hour service, but it's to take over the contracts that, the costs are exceeding, the benefit in reality of what we're seeing, with the parking. We did an RFP for parking last year. It was determined that, the management type contract was costing more. We looked at other opportunities and how to best do this, how to best run the airport effectively, efficiently, but, in most cost effective. So we crunched the numbers. We looked at the contracts that we could take over, what our staff could do here, plus the benefit of having somebody here on site 24 hours. I had mentioned earlier that we have instances where, a medevac helicopter is coming in or an aircraft, and we have an ambulance responding in the middle of the night. We have nobody here to open a gate to let them in. So it's a delay of service there, having somebody here. Security issues, especially, with the storms coming through. We've had instances where, just making sure gates remain closed. I mean, we all know things happen. So, having an ops staff members here, they can check gates, they can do perimeter checks. They can begin snow removal where we don't have to call somebody in at 2 a.m. They'll be here, they can start snow removal, cut down on the overtime there.
Any questions, Randy?
Yeah, getting the extra coverage obviously is a big bonus here for you. I agree with Greg. I mean, $50,000 could be eaten up pretty quickly, so it'd be good to see a measure of this in time. But how many employees would this take the airport to?
Would be 23 total.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Greg?
Yeah, to Randy's point, Roxanne, maybe to clarify, a majority of those are likely in the firefighter operations department, and some of those, or a majority of those positions are federally mandated or required to have that amount of coverage?
So we do have, and I can have Josh is on as well if he can speak to this too, but we do have, a mandate of having the airport covered with aircraft rescue firefighters, on scene. So we have a minimum requirement for that. The other positions that are created in here are 5 blue-collar positions for an airport maintenance worker. And then we have, myself, but we also have Josh and Jeremy, who are also, because of still having a small staff, they maintain their ability to be, responding for aircraft emergencies as well.
And then the 5 maintenance worker, the blue collar grade 7, those would be able to assist with general maintenance and then also the parking attendants as well, so they sort of have dual function?
Yep, they'll have multiple functions. There'll be snow removal for, the parking lot area in front of the terminal. They will be cleaning, they will be mowing grass, general maintenance in the terminal, multiple levels that they can be useful for, yeah.
And just one last follow-up question, I apologize. Is currently, our majority of those functions are done by airport firefighter operations technicians, or do we have maintenance staff that are currently cutting the grass and plowing, or those contracted services?
Those are the contracted services that there's 4 actual contracts services that we're going to be able to replace with the individuals.
Got it. And those, sorry, one more. Those 4, just so I'm clear, would be parking, snow removal, lawn care, and cleaning?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And security.
Oh, and
security.
yeah,
Security for the op portion, yeah.
During our budget discussions with other departments, we're finding that what Roxanne is describing is not unique to the airport, that the contracts are exceeding what it may potentially cost our departments to run the facility themselves. So I would not be surprised if you were to get another proposal similar to what Roxanne's suggesting in the future because of the way the costs of those contracts are escalating.
I would just say, I mean, I saw that same thing. So this makes sense. It seems very practical. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Thank you, Roxanne.
You're welcome.
And Josh, too, for being here. Okay. All right, moving on, downtown facilities discussion. Randy, do you want to?
Actually, is she on here for department updates?
Oh, a departmental update, yes. Sorry. Thank you for catching that.
No problem. So in your packet, I know, Randy, I think this had come to light at one of the previous F&I meetings, and it was kind of discussed of, how does revenue come into the airport? How, what options do we have? What opportunities are there? How do we track stuff? How does stuff fit? So I did a Airport Financials 101, the basics. I've been working on the budget many years, and also it's always good to have fresh eyes looking at stuff. So, I appreciated Norma popping in and helping with a lot of stuff as well. But Airport Financials, the basics, I'll just kind of run through this, and any questions, please let me know. And I'm happy to, at any time after the meetings, to sit, if you guys have further detailed questions, you want to sit one-on-one, I will be happy to answer more questions. So we currently operate with 4 cost centers here at the airport, and kind of stuff is put into different pots. We have the airfield, the terminal, ground transportation, and other lease. Each cost center has expenses associated with it, and therefore when we have estimated revenue coming in, that gets applied to the appropriate cost center. So when I look at the expenses, I track them, based on the line item budget that we do for the county, personal services, equipment, supplies, right on down through. So then you look at all of the expenses, and they're kind of pulled into what area of what cost center they kind of fall into. So then after I get all the expenses determined for the following year, get the line item budget put together, I look at, okay, non-airline revenue. What can I come up with, and how can that factor in? And those are then placed into the cost centers. So we have, for the airfield, we have other landing fees, so general aviation. We're fortunate here, we have Teganic Aviation, we have the Flight Academy. They, assist greatly with our non-airline revenue. Within the terminal, we have rental cars. We have counter rent, car wash facility, ready, the parking spots we get paid, from the rental car companies for each parking spot that is theirs. ID badges, advertising commission. So that all kind of falls under the terminal cost center. Within ground transportation, we have the rental car commission and parking. And then under our other leased, we have East Hill Flying Club, Teganic, T hangars. We currently have 32 T hangars here at the airport, and every one of them is full. So that's a positive on that side as well. And the fuel farm commission. So a lot of the increases each year are based on either contractual agreements, so they're increased by the CPI or Consumer Price Index, or another determining factor within the contract. So if you're renting space in the terminal, for instance, you have a rental rate that I'll kind of describe a little bit later based on what is needed to run the terminal. Our airline revenue consists of rental and landing fees. So rental rates are based on the amount of space occupied by the airlines. And each airline is assigned a different type at each area. So we have the exclusive area, the shared and joint use, and each has like certain functions, and that rate is, just based on the function of that area. And then we get an overall determination of what we need to cover. It's like 22,000 square feet, I believe, in the terminal, 22,911. So that's based on, so each of those are kind of based differently. So we have, the shared space is based on the total square foot, and then it's based on a percentage of passengers that each airline has. So the more passengers you have, obviously they're using the space more, you pay a larger amount of money. The joint space is the total space of the hold room, the baggage, and then it's done by an 80-20% split. So there's a lot that goes into the monthly airline billing. That I could probably do another whole presentation on. Then you get into landing fees. So that's one that falls into the airfield. So the landing fees are based on the maximum certified gross landing weight of the aircraft multiplied by however many landings they have. So for example, a CRJ 900 operated by Delta has an MCGLW of 75,100. So it lands 60 times a month. So the total billable weight is 4,506,000 times the $6.20 landing fee. So their monthly landing fee is just over $27,000, almost $28,000. So I calculate these each month based on numbers that I receive from the airline. So the landing rate is determined each year based on kind of the amount of revenue needed to cover the airfield that's not covered by non-airline revenue that's within the airfield cost center. And so this is kind of also true for the terminal. They base the terminal rental rate on what is needed to cover the terminal costs after factoring in the non-airline revenue. So another tricky part of the budget is determining, okay, how many flights are we going to have next year? What's our landed weight going to be? You know, I have to prepare all that, looking, okay, you know, this is where we're at for 23. This is kind of where we're at year to date to 24. Do we anticipate any increase in service? Are the aircraft going to be larger? Are they going to weigh more? That's got to be factored in when I determine all of that. So that's how the landing fees are calculated. So all of this is incorporated into the operating budget. Then we have the passenger facility charge, which is another source of revenue, but that is collected by the airlines on each leg of a trip. So the PFC currently is $4.50 for each leg of a flight you take. The airline collects that, and they actually pay us $4.39, and they keep 11 cents. Those funds can be used for airport improvement program projects. And normally it's normally a 5% share that we use from PFCs. But for instance, in 2025 and 2026, we're only going to be, it's going to be 2.5% because the federal government's going to be paying 95% of AIP projects. So these projects are determined based on, you know, the PAR forms, based on the FAA ACIP, the Airport Capital Improvement Plan. And we look at all of the information and, you know, we determine, you know, the level of priority, you know, for the FAA, what can fit in there. And then it's put on a PFC application, which is approved by the FAA. It's reviewed by the airlines. And so the funds are collected and put into an account. So for instance, actually in 2020 and 2021, the FAA covered 100% of all AIP projects. So any PFCs we collected didn't need to necessarily go to any of the projects that we were doing in those years. And PFC collections are down, but as numbers increase, for instance, in 2019, we collected almost $440,000 in PFCs, which is a big help with the projects. I'm really trying hard. We're working with finance and Norma and CNS to get the PFC information updated so I can give a very good report back to you guys as well on where we are with the PFCs, with the collections and what projects are out there. That's something hopefully that we will be meeting within the next month with finance again. And lastly, the customer facility charges, which are CFCs. So they're very similar to a PFC, but they're based by the rental car companies. So per transaction day, there's a $3 fee charged. These fees come into us, the finance keeps them in a separate account, and these fees can be used to build the new car wash for the rental car company, do the parking lot for the rental car company. It has to be related to something for the rental car companies. But it's just something that the airport wouldn't have to fund necessarily out of their operating budget. This is something, and rental car spaces can't be used, you can't use federal funds for those. So the CFC is a checking account basically that we can use when we need to do something for the rental car. So it's a good to have the money there and available and look at projects coming forward on what needs to be done. And I know that's a lot.
It was great. It was very thorough. Randy?
Roxanne, that was great. That did help me. Thank you. I have a few questions. I was up there and I noticed that we have a pretty large parking area the airport does. Is that the county's land or is that Cornell's land we lease?
So the paid parking,
Yes.
that's our parking. That's
All the
Yep.
long-term as well? I mean, it didn't seem like the parking lot was very full usually, so I was just curious about that. Maybe there's an opportunity for a ride share or some type of a process, but on a rental cart, that was interesting to share with that. Do we charge, and maybe Greg can know this, do we charge any type of percentage on top of rental cars for our STB program? Is that $3 charge, or $3 charge, the only additional charge on rental cars?
To my knowledge, if I may, there's no revenue that comes through STPB or anything that's outside of occupancy tax collection. So there would be no there'd be no conduit for any sort of those rental car funds to go anywhere else other than to the airport operation.
I asked it because when I traveled a lot of rental car companies had an additional percentage on top of the rental car that was used for that. So I just want to ask that question. And the last one is the customs center. I know that had been a revenue loss. Are there any plans for that going forward, or what are your thoughts on that?
I've just been gathering information. I know that many county legislators are interested in the customs facility. So I've just been gathering information and meeting today with Norma and Lisa on our budget. So I probably will be discussing with them any information there and then, sharing information forward.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, Roxanne, I liked having this on one page and being able to see the answers to a lot of these questions. I had a few things I wanted to ask about. I can remember when we were adding T-hanger spaces a number of years ago. And if they're full now, should we be trying to add more, or do we not have room for it, or?
So that's something that we're looking at too with the strategic and business plan that's happening right now at the airport of, hangar space availability. We just came full probably 3 months ago, all of our hangars filled up, and we do have a short waiting list. So this is something we are looking at, and there is an opportunity. It's just funding, and I do believe we have location for one that we could as well.
Okay, thanks. Sort of toward Greg's or Randy's question, rather, do we charge cabs and limousines anything for standing space?
So they used to pay fees, but then they would come in front of the terminal. Now it actually comes through the short-term lot. So they come into the short-term lot to pick up passengers, and the fee is directed there.
Well, they actually pay for the parking right there. Okay, so we're getting something.
We're getting something, and we also receive an annual check from Uber every year, and we receive monthly checks from Lyft.
Oh, good. A couple other ones I wanted to ask about. Our fuel facility set up, I know, so we can fuel other entities. Are there ones out there that we think we ought to be using our facility that aren't?
I do know, so this is a question for Josh, but we currently can only, you have to, we buy it with tax-free, funding, so that you have to have a WEX card to be able to purchase, and I'll let Josh speak to this.
Yeah, so currently we fuel all the state highway vehicles, New York State Troopers, Department of Corrections, when they pass through the area, they fuel out of the airport. I was actually asked yesterday from the town of Lansing Highway Department. They are getting ready to build a new facility at the highway garage, and instead of putting a $1 to $2 million fuel farm, they asked if we could sustain their vehicles, and we can. We do have enough product on site. So any municipality that has a WEX card can come to the airport, put their card in just like a credit card, all across the state. If you have a WEX card from Texas and you're in the area, and you're a municipality WEX holder, you can fuel at our facility.
What about school buses, Josh?
Oh, I'm sure they can. I mean, it's a municipality. We haven't come down that discussion yet, but I think most school buses probably fuel up on their own sites, possibly. I haven't looked into that, Mike, but that's a, you know, that would be something to look into for sure.
Yeah, maybe through BOCES or something. Thanks, Josh. Those are, I had no doubt that you folks were on all of this, but it's nice to hear it publicly from time to time.
I've seen the Department of Corrections out of Albany, you know, their vehicles have been at the fuel farm fueling up. So somewhere in the state, they actually have a, you know, facility list when they're in areas, certain areas when they're coming through. And they've been out there fueling up. EC vehicles fuel up, you know, of course, some county vehicles and our vehicles. So there's a lot of use. It's a pretty good shared service, easy to get in and out of from Warren Road, so well lit.
Thank you. And the last question I was wondering about, are we seeing any demand for warehousing or storage area out there? I know that's been discussed in the past, if we had a building, for example, that we could lease out.
Well, we've been looking at everything with a strategic plan. I don't want to jump over Roxanne, but you know, a couple of our ideas with our building when we build our new facility is, can we get a through the gate cargo hub? Can we get a mechanic school for aircraft put back into our building, repurposing this building that we're growing out of, something that somebody can, you know, generate some revenue to the airport and it, you know, hopefully employ some people in the area as well. So everything's on the table of trying to figure out how to bring the airport self-sufficient again and, you know, generate some revenue as well.
Thank you very much.
Greg, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, thank you. Roxanne and Josh, I know at our last Air Service Board meeting, there was good news about demand and load factors and those type of things. I have the Air Service Development notes up and just was asking you if it would make sense to share those with this committee because it looked like demand was up 7% year over year, surpassing 2022 levels. And that was when Ithaca was served by 3 airlines. Top destinations are Western business markets, LAX, SFO, and ORD, which it's LA, San Francisco, and Chicago. That's about 1/5 of Ithaca's traffic. And then 10% of the traffic is international. That's over 2 times the share of each nearby airport's traffic. The other thing was load factors are strong. Year to date to June, load factor of 75%. That's up 12 points year over year. And the biggest year over year gains were in February, March, up 18 points and 16 points respectively. So it's a slow, long runway to get back to pre-pandemic levels. But I think it's important to highlight, while there maybe are feelings of pressure and budgetary constraints, there is growth that's happening in the market. Air travel is starting to creep back. There continues to be interest by other airlines and the airlines we're currently working with to expand service. So while it's not the greatest news always for the airport, I think that there's good news to be shared, and it's important to not negate some of those wins, because we are seeing increases year over year, which is what was projected, sort of a slow creep back to pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that as well. I mean, there's always a lot of questions about the airport, so being able to share the good news would be important.
And I'll just jump in here real quick too. We're working on, Mike Lane had asked about like a 1-pager that people could share. So we've got a draft on that. Josh and I are going to be looking at that. Chris is back next week, the marketing person, and we're going to try to put that together. And just something that people can have and share, whether it be, you know, out to breakfast, at a meeting, you know, anywhere, you know, within Tompkins County or outside of the county. trying to bring people here. So we're hoping to have that within the next few weeks as well that we can share.
Thank you. I think that sounds great. Mike?
Just one more thing, if I may. We hear some background rumble at the legislature about the airport and, who it serves. And we have a thing like the customs where it's not making the money we thought it would right now. But, throughout the whole county, we have different programs and different things that we do that maybe don't serve a whole lot of people and cost us a whole lot of money too. So I want to be careful not to single out the airport. The airport is so important for our economic development, and I just wanted to say that.
I think it's very visible, and I think that's one of the reasons that happens, but you're right, Mike. All right, anything else? Thank you both so much. We appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. All right. Randy, downtown facilities?
Thank you, Susan. Not much of an update from our meeting a couple days ago, but we're going to be looking at the 6 RFQ submissions that we did receive by the deadline, which was last week. And there's a committee that's set up for that. And when Arel returns from vacation, we'll be getting together, and there's a timeline, and hopefully we'll be presenting to the full legislature in early September the proposed selection for architects and engineers. And the other thing, actually I heard on the radio this morning that the city of Ithaca for new buildings has passed a bird-friendly requirement for new buildings. And we actually had a presentation on that last year from somebody. I don't know if that applies to us or not, but basically what you do in those bird-friendly buildings is the glass is etched or some other way so that birds can see that. There are also grants available for new buildings from the state for that, whether that applies or not. One of the big issues we'll talk about at our next meeting is State Historic Preservation Office is identified the 3 buildings the county owns that we desire to remove, that they are contributing to the historic district. And the issue comes down to what benefit is there for us to work closely and adhere to all their requirements. Is there any funding from the state and federal government to help us build this building to fulfill the requirements that they have. And lastly, I'd like to say that I have no doubt this legislature, as it's redone this building, we're in the legislature office, the old jail, and other buildings here, that we'll do the right thing regardless of what the state requires us to do. There's a lot of desire to do it correctly, so hopefully we just convince the people in this state that, we're going to do that. So, thank you.
Mike?
Randy, I don't think they've passed that bird-friendly law. I think they're just beginning to discuss it at the city.
In the city? Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. Next is Frank Doldo's here. He's going to give, first we'll have the presentation and then we'll go through all the resolutions.
Really brief presentation. You'll be seeing a lot of me next meeting also. This is resolution time. When I first started and was at the county legislative meeting, they asked me to assess our current operations and come up with a plan. So for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been talking to lots of people. Did a public participation meeting all last week, ended Monday. Thank you, County Legislature Brown, for coming to the Enfield one. Very lively discussion, very helpful. So I also have a survey and a presentation all online that people could access. So through this public participation, I'm going to rewrite the draft plan and do a presentation for you all next month, along with passing several federal resolutions to accept money for projects. And I just want to let you know in advance, so you'll see me next month and hopefully get some feedback from you all, and hopefully get a resolution passed that you accept my plan and move on to the legislature.
We'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
Randy?
Yeah, Frank, you mentioned that we needed to, the county needed to go through some accreditation or provide clearer documentation or backup documentation to get up to a certain standard. Could you, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but basically we had reports that we needed to complete and I forgot what the conversation was about, but you had to do a lot of work to kind of get to the point where we could accept federal funds.
Yes, so there's several contracts, and unfortunately the state is behind. So there's lots of contracts that need to be signed so that the state can give us money. And there's several federal requirements, like a couple of them that the Title VI, that has to be accepted in order for us to receive federal funds. We got a great collaborative effort with all our third-party vendors and our sub-recipients, TCAT and Gadabout, but we're moving right along.
I see Katie Borgella, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I think what Randy's referring to is the triennial review, Frank, so just talking about that process briefly would be helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
That was it.
It's always great when your boss is here. Got your back. So as you are aware, the triennial review was in 2022, and there were some things that needed to be fixed. So it took about from March to November to get everything fixed. Part of the responsibility of the Planning and Sustainability Office, my position, is to do oversight. And so that has been very time-consuming because we not only have to give oversight to our sub-recipients, which is TCAT and Gadabout, but also our mobility management functions that are happening currently. So we're in that process. We've cured all the triennial review deficiencies. Sanctions were lifted, and we're moving in a very positive direction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I think next we would move along to the resolutions, right? So first, let's do the one that was not on the agenda. It's Resolution ID 12582, authorizing Federal Transit Administration Grant 2023-073, Section 5339C, Low and No Emissions Vehicle Program Grant for TCAT. I need someone to move that. Mike moves. I need a second. Greg seconds. Any discussion? Questions? Greg?
I see that our non-federal New York State and TCAT aid or costs, sorry, not aid, is listed in one of the columns, a total of 1.49. Do we know how much of that will be a TCAT share?
So the TCAT share is 10%. So for capital purchase, it's 80% feds, 10% state, and 10% local match, and TCAT would be the local match.
Any other questions?
But just can I add to that?
Please.
So there's also state funding called ATC and MEP. MEP is Modernization Enhancement Program. It's for all capital projects that have 10-year life expectancy or greater. And ATC is Accelerated Transit capital, something like that. And that's for any capital purchase that's 5 years or greater. It's 100% covered by the state. And what we were able to do for both Gadabout on their bus purchases and TCAT on their bus purchases is if we had the money in both those grants, we would use the 100% to cover the local match.
I think Randy was next.
Yes, Frank. Electric buses. So I see here that there are buses that were being purchased, there'll be 10 of them, they'll be all electric. Is the plan to convert all the buses to electric?
So I'm going to let TCAT answer that question. I'll let TCAT answer that question. Their original plan was to go to low, no emissions, go fully electric. I don't know if that plan has changed or not. I know they're moving forward on purchasing electric buses. And in case you didn't see the press release, they were just awarded $1.2 million for 2 hybrid buses.
Yeah.
Hybrid buses? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned if the grid goes down, how do you charge things? So, but do they have a generator, TCAT?
I don't know the answer.
I'll find out.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'll find out.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I know you're on
That'd
that
be-
board, so.
Yeah, it'd be good to know. I don't know that either, so.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Greg, sorry.
No, that's okay. You know, it'd be interesting to see, Susan, and maybe since you're on the TCAT board or Frank, some coordination thereof, just to look at because TCAT currently has some all-electric buses.
Well, they
No.
had to pull
No?
them because of the problems with the understructure, so
Oh,
they
that's
pulled
right.
them.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah.
we're not buying those type of electric
No.
buses. We're buying a different one.
Right now the plan is for Gillig's.
Yes.
And Gillig brought a bus here a few months ago, in a fully electric bus, and some county legislators,
Yeah, I went on that bus, yeah.
and it was a great experience, and they're currently in the process of ordering 5 of Gillig buses. But the buses you're referring to is Proterra.
Yeah.
Proterra went bankrupt, and there were structural issues that TCAT faced that made the right move to pull them off the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just love to see a side-by-side comparison over the course of a year of, you know, a bus that goes into service at the same time. What are maintenance costs? What are fuel costs or electric costs? And have a conversation, because I think I'm supportive of electric buses. I'm supportive of low and no emissions. And I think getting some of those factual points out there into the conversation could help or potentially hurt, but I don't know what those are, and it would be really interesting to see, especially if the purchase, there's going to be a continued local commitment through that process, just side by side, what, you know, electric versus the, you know, old school, I don't even know if they're gas or diesel, the buses.
The buses are diesel and gas, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that, you know, there's a new executive director of TCAT. They also had a new HR director and a new budget person. So, and they've only been there a few months, but the amount of work that they've done to improve overall, you know, every day-to-day operations. And just yesterday we had a discussion about, you know, electric buses and, you know, purchases and things. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I feel like they're cleaning up a lot of things
Sure.
that was there. So
Unavailable.
yeah, but they're doing a fantastic job. And I know that one of the issues TCAT had was hiring bus drivers. And so they've been really focused on that and getting the CDLs with those people and training. And actually Matt, the new director, has been driving buses when there's a need. And also it's the time for negotiating with Cornell. So they've got a lot of irons in the fire, but it would, you know, I think that's a great idea that you have. And if you could just send me a summary
Sure.
of what you'd like, I think
Yeah.
that would be a great report to have on a regular basis, so.
Yeah. I also know somebody who recently was hired by TCAT and went through the CDL process and the training and is absolutely loving the job and is having a blast. And it's great to see that there's those type of opportunities out there, because anytime we can, get more CDL drivers and those type of things out into the community, it's those are good jobs to have.
Well, it was great to go on the ride of the bus that came from Gillig, and Matt started out driving, the director of one of the buses, and some of the bus routes are hairpin turns on hills. It was quite exciting. So anyway, thank you.
So to answer, I would like you to write this down, because I think you would find this extremely interesting. So we're fortunate enough to host the Mobility Summit at the brand new Convention Center next week, Wednesday and Thursday, July 24th and 25th. I cordially invite all of you to come to anything, but July 25th, we have Rochester Transit coming down to do a keynote at 12 noon on low to no emissions and what they're doing with their mixed fleet. I've already seen his presentation, and I believe a lot of those questions that you have will be answered in that presentation, because they've been doing it for a few years.
Great. If anybody's not able to make that, if you could share that presentation, or if there's a way to get a copy, that would be appreciated as well.
I would appreciate it. I'd be out of town, and I would very much appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll get the slideshow for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, I think we're ready to vote on the resolution. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you. And then I'm just going to read the rest of the resolutions. The next one is a resolution, the authorization of New York State Dedicated Federal Transportation Operating Agreement, ID 12531. I need someone to move. Greg and Mike seconds. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Resolution authorizing the 2024-001 Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 Rural Formula Program Grant Transfer to 5307 Grant Formula ID 12546. I need someone to move.
Oh, is that the one that was pulled?
Oh, I had resolution D.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. That's okay.
This is B, right?
This is B. Did someone move? I'm sorry. Oh, Greg. And someone second? Randy, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And then resolution C, I'll use the letter, it makes it a little easier. Authorizing 2023-026 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Program Grant Application for Tompkins County, ID 12547. Mike moves. Greg seconds. All in favor? I have a question. Oh, Randy has a question.
So, Frank, I'm just looking at this, and a lot of them are like this. And it shows going back to 2020, 21, 22. So these are funds that have been out there, but now we're just pulling in?
Correct. They were out there. They weren't being spent. So we moved the money current so that we wouldn't lose the money.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Ready to vote? All in favor? Pass unanimously. Okay, resolution D was pulled. Resolution E, authorizing 2023-074 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Program Grant Application for Tompkins County, ID 12549. Need someone to move? Mike? Greg seconds, thank you. And discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Resolution F, authorizing 2023-083 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Urban Formula Program Grant Application for Tompkins County, ID 12548. Someone move? Greg, second. Randy? Questions? Discussion? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Let's see, we're on G, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Lost my place. This is the last one. Approving Tompkins County's 2024 Title VI program for the Federal Transit Administration ID 12545. Someone move? Mike? Greg? Thank you, Greg. Seconds. Discussion? Okay, ready to vote? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
Susan, can I just say one thing under transportation?
Yes.
And that is, we did an extensive study about Route 13 from Lansing to near Dryden out to Yellow Barn and to the west boundary of Dryden Village. A lot of recommendations in that. One of them was how bad the intersection was at Lower Creek Road,
Yes. Yeah.
which is always surprising to look at it because it's a huge, wide intersection.
Yeah.
But people, I think there's so much room that people just do strange things there, and there have been a lot of serious accidents. Driving through this week, it looks like the state is going to put in a traffic signal there.
Oh.
They were installing the metal bar across the road this week, and I think that would be a real help there because there hasn't been a traffic signal there before. And it's not coming any too soon because, boy, driving down this morning, the traffic on Route 13 in that area is just getting heavier and heavier, and a lot of it's truck traffic.
Yep, I've seen that too, yeah. Okay, thanks, Frank. All right, last on our agenda is the approval of the June 20th minutes. Someone move? Randy and Craig seconds, thank you. All in favor?
Frank, are we meeting?
Raise your hand, Randy.
We're going to TCAT?
Raise your hand. Okay. That's unanimous. Okay.
Okay, so let me put it down.
All right. Any other business? Okay. I think we're adjourned. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.